I should say I'm honored because I've been involved in the journey of Strathmore in Tanzania. I've been in these discussions or panel discussions involving Strathmore. I've also been I'm an alumni of Strathmore Business School, especially the board leadership. So I really appreciate what the Institute does, and I really appreciate the fact that you have decided to come and establish the organization in Tanzania and invite some of us to be part of the leadership. But when an institution like that, or any organization, establishes itself in a market, in an environment, it's important it situates itself in the environment that it is going to operate by understanding what are probably what I might call the tailwinds and probably what are the headwinds. The tailwinds that will help the institution move forward, the headwinds that might kind of form some sort of resistance. So I will share my reflections. Francis has touched on statistics based on performance in the past. I'll share my reflections on what I have read or what I think is going to happen in the Tanzanian economy for the next 5 to 10 years, probably looking at a 10-year horizon. If you look at all the forecasts, all the outlooks, they are projecting that Tanzania's economy, GDP, is going to grow at a growing rate, and that's important. It's not only going to grow, but it's going to grow at a growing rate. In the next 3 years, I think they're projecting it might grow at 5.3 or 5.5 to 6.3 the following year to 7 point something the year after, which is a good sign that all the analysts are projecting that Tanzania economy is going to grow at a growing rate. And that's a 3-year outlook. Probably if you look at a 10-year outlook, the trend might be the same. Because remember, 20 plus years ago, when Tanzania drafted what used to be called the National Strategy for Growth and Reduction of Poverty, the required growth rates to put a permanent dent on poverty was to grow at 8 to 10% consistently for 10 years. That is the rate of growth that is required to be attained by Tanzania to put a permanent dent on poverty. Yes, poverty has been declining, but has not been declining at a rate that will really eliminate poverty in our lifetime. Now, the question one needs to ask, if we are saying Tanzania is going to grow at a growing rate, what sectors are going to drive that growth? I was laughing, if you read this year's budget speech, and it is talking about the sectors that had grown the year before, the fastest growing sector in Tanzania for last year was arts and entertainment. That was the fastest growing sector. Arts and entertainment. Now, do you want our economy to be driven by arts and entertainment? And also because the contribution to GDP is minimal, it's just that the rate of growth is very high. Now, that's different from around 15 years ago. If you looked at the sectors that had established the highest growth, were financial services, mining, construction. See, now we have seen a change. Also because sectors like financial services have almost reached saturation point. They are not growing as fast as mining had faced a policy challenge that hindered growth. Now, if you ask me, if I look at the next 5 to 10 years, I'm seeing several sectors are being critical and important to the growth of our economy. Number one, oil and gas. For sure, within the next 10 years, we are going to see first gas coming from offshore LNG project. And the most important phase of that project is not the actual extraction of gas, because most of it is going to be exported. We are going to get money, but the most important phase of that project is the construction phase. A 5-year phase of construction is going to inject anything between 20 to $30 billion into our economy as FDIs. That's when we're probably going to see a 2-point jump on our growth rate. So oil and gas, and I'm glad, I think this year we're going to see the signing of the host government agreement between international oil companies and the government of Tanzania, which is going to trigger the next steps and are going then to unlock the biggest single investment that Tanzania has had since independence. So that's going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years. If you talk to manufacturing companies, and probably there are people from the manufacturing companies, the likes of Coca-Cola, etc., consistently, all of them, they'll tell you their number one challenge in manufacturing is energy availability. Reliable energy availability. In the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see the completion of the new Julius Nyerere hydroelectric power. That is going to provide over 2,000 megawatts, which is more than the combined available energy stock in Tanzania now. I think the combined power generation now is about 1,500. So adding 2,000 plus, it means our energy stock is going to be, and that's only from hydroelectric. I know the government is also inviting renewable energy service providers to come in. So it means within the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to solve the number one biggest bottleneck for manufacturing in Tanzania, which means manufacturing is going to go up again. And I think it's important, because also we have seen, and here I'm saying with care, when we opened up our economy, Tanzania was so much dependent on manufacturing products from Kenya, because Kenya's manufacturing industry had advanced a lot more. But if you look at the last 20 years, the likes of Bakresa, the likes of Mohammed Enterprises, and many other similar, have established quite a lot of either agro-processing or purely metal, of course, the likes of Mortison Group, etc. So we really have created a bit more independence on manufacturing, and we're actually now exporting a lot, especially to SADC countries. So I'm seeing energy solving our manufacturing, and of course other related industry, which will then help the growth of our sector. Another area, of our economy, another area which makes me a lot optimistic is the transport infrastructure. As you know, Tanzania is also in probably overall 40 to 50% construction of the standard gauge railway. Now, the standard gauge railway project, its importance is not about passenger. Unfortunately, when we talk about standard gauge railway, we always talk about how fast it will take me to arrive to Morogoro, that I'll go to Morogoro and there's a bit of overselling. The value of standard gauge railway is in its ability to transport goods more reliably. Actually, any railway in the world is not built for passenger traffic. Railways are built for goods. You see? So if you look at the performance of the transport infrastructure in Tanzania, in 1991, in the early 90s, or even in the 80s, the Central Line Railway, which is the one traversing from Dar es Salaam to Kigoma, used to transport an average of 1 million metric tons per year. 1 million metric tons per year. Now, we are talking about 150 to 200,000 metric tons per year. Why? Because, of course, of the old age of the meter gauge railway, issues of maintenance. So coming into standard gauge, It means we are going to revamp the ability of the central line to really be able to take more goods along that. And most of it actually is coming from DRC, the northeastern part of DRC. And if you look at the current intention of the standard gauge railway, is to connect it to Burundi, into Rwanda, and finally into DRC. So transport infrastructure, of course, we've also improved efficiency at the Dar es Salaam port. That connected will really help grow our economy. Somebody usually calls our strategic position, especially as far as the transport network is concerned, is our mineral X, is the biggest asset we have as a country, is our strategic position and the ability to use it for transit transportation to grow our economy. So transport infrastructure is something that I'm very optimistic that will help spearhead the growth of our economy. Of course, my hope and a bit of reservation now is we need to do more on the line going south, the railway line going into Tunduma. There we need to do more. I'm told the Chinese government has interest in upgrading the Tazara railway line into standard gauge railway, because I'll give you one statistics. 1/3 of all the goods that come through Dar es Salaam port, 1/3 of the goods are transit. 2/3 remain into the country, 1/3 goes into other countries. And out of that 1/3, I think the last data I checked, the total cargo throughput was around 18 million metric tons in a year through Dar es Salaam port. Out of it, about 6 million metric tons was transit. Out of the 6 million, 4 million, which is about 2/3 of the 6 million, is going through Tunduma, either into Zambia or into DRC. A bit of it is also going into Malawi, which means a lot of our transit business is not along the central line. A lot of our transit business is along the Tazara line. So I hope with time we'll also upgrade, and I'm sure within the next 10 years we'll see that upgrade already have happened. Another area another sector that I am seeing getting a revamp is the mining. And especially because of the new rare earth minerals that are already being exploited in the country. And even, there was a time we even thought coal was useless. Now, thanks to I'm not sure if I should say thanks, but because of whatever is happening up in the north, coal is once again a very valuable. So mining sector is going to see another revamp. I think what we saw in the 90s and the early 2000s is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, where huge investments are going to come into the mining sector. Of course, when all this happens, it means also support sectors such as construction is going to be positively impacted, social services, etc., etc., etc. But let me put a but after saying all that. Let me also, another trend I think is an important trend to 102. Technology. If you look at the trend at which technology is growing, artificial intelligence, big data type of analytics, and if you look at the type of technological inventions done by young people in Tanzania, I'm seeing technology as a huge, first by itself as a sector that contributes, but also as a facilitator to the other sectors. With a small print, I'll also add, you might not think it is related, but I think it is related. Democratic space growth. Why is this important? Policy making, economic policy making, is first and foremost a political process. All economic policies that drive either the growth of the economy, the growth of private sector, are first and foremost a political process. So when there is democratic growth, the space for democratic discussion is increasing, it means even policy making, economic policy making, is going to be more democratic. One of the challenges that I've seen in economic policy making is the lack of regulatory impact assessments. You know, in advanced countries, you do a regulatory impact assessment before you put in place a new regulation, just to assess what will be the impact of this new regulation to the economy, to the growth of private sector, which are the biggest contributors. So I am sure once we see this, I mean, the way I'm seeing our democratic discussions on decisions that are made on our economy, and the government is engaging in those discussions, it means going forward, policy-making process is going to be more democratized, and it will help the growth of our economy. I have some questions in my mind, and I would like to share with you some of those questions. Everything I've said is rosy, but there are questions that we need to ask ourselves. Are these the sectors that deploy the majority of our people? Are these the sectors that create employment to the majority of our people? Are these the type of economic establishments, the large, because most of these companies that are going to involve themselves in these sectors are probably the large enterprises, which only constitute what, 5% of the total establishments or something like that? Are these the sectors that, because most employment is created by SMEs, or MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. So what can we do to ensure there is linkage between SMEs and these large enterprises? Because all over the world, not only in Tanzania, employment is not created by large corporates. Employment is created by micro, small, and medium enterprises. So what could be our role in creating very vibrant micro, small, and medium enterprises? You have noticed the sector that probably is the most important, and I've not mentioned, is agriculture. I am not so optimistic, although I should, but I'm not so optimistic as yet. But if we really are to create a permanent dent in poverty, we need to attract huge investment in agriculture. And especially, you know, in the past, we used to, there's an interesting dichotomy, what we call cash crops and food crops. I think for those of us who have gone to school in Tanzania, we have been taught mazao ya chakula na mazao ya biashara. You see, it means there are things you produce just for household consumption and things that you produce for sale. Recent trend has shown those that are called food crops actually can make us more money than those that are called cash crops. Because you can skip coffee, you can skip drinking coffee, you can skip smoking cigarettes. Actually, tobacco used to be popular, tobacco is no longer popular. Even smoking is no longer, there has to be that print. You see, you can skip sugar. You see, actually, you reach a certain age and stage in life, you are advised to take little sugar, but you can't skip food. You cannot. You see, but because of that misnomer of a wrong dichotomy, if you look at the type of investments done in the cash crops, are huge compared to the investments done in the food crops. So what can we do to reverse and attract investments and because food crops, because of food security, there's a lot of politicization of farming in food crops. But all in all, I think I am seeing a trend whereby if we can attract large investments in agriculture, especially in food crops agriculture, then it will really help to create that dent that I've talked about on poverty. Now, one or two other things, or three probably, that are always in my mind. Last week, I think it was Monday last week, I was moderating a panel discussion during the launch of the FinScope report, the report that looks at the financial penetration in Tanzania. As of now, 39% of Tanzanians live in urban areas. As of now. As of 2017, where the last census of FinScope also happened, the last FinScope, around 35% of Tanzanians were living in urban areas. Now it's 39. Now, if you are doing arithmetic projection or progression, probably in the next 20 to 25 years, by the year 2050, probably 50% of Tanzanians are going to be living in urban areas. Actually, Tanzania is one of the fastest urbanizing countries in the world. What does it mean? It means we should also change our mindset, thinking that people are in the rural areas, people are actually coming to the urban areas, number one. But it also means poverty. Actually, if you look at the last household budget survey, the highest growth of poor people in terms of percentage of poor people happened in the urban areas. Poverty is becoming an urban concept. You know, in the past we thought you're going to find poverty when you go into the village. Now it's easier to find poverty in the cities than in the. And the danger about poverty in the cities is poverty that is concentrated. Actually, the most poor people are living somewhere around Temeke district. Now, just imagine, difference from poverty in the rural areas, where if you're poor, but you can just survive because you can go into the nearby shamba and maybe ask for this and that. But when you are poor and you're in the city, and probably if you just take a daladala drive or ride, you see rich people living lavishly. Then you might see a solution to your poverty. You see? So we have to start looking at income inequality in urban areas because it is associated with crime. So Tanzania is actually by the year 2080, I know at least I will not be there. Maybe you're the only one. Who's going to be there by 2080? Dar es Salaam is going to be the third largest city in the world in terms of population. The third most populous city in the world. How are we preparing ourselves for that? And of course, population growth. By the year 2033, Tanzania is going to have probably around 80 million people. Dar es Salaam, by itself, by the year 2023, is going to have probably between 12 to 15 million people. Now, having said all that, I will not talk about climate change. We will have conversations. Having said all that, what is the position of an organization like the Strathmore Global Institute in Tanzania? What is our position? And I think it's an important position. You know, I usually say the most successful companies in the world are prioritizing three things. All over the world, the most successful companies in the world are prioritizing three things. Customer engagement, they're obsessed with knowing what their customer wants, or at least influencing what their customers want. Customer engagement. Number two, technology. They are obsessed in prioritizing the use of technology in service provision. Number 3, the most successful companies invest a lot in their people. The difference between successful companies and not successful companies is not about the structures, the infrastructures. It's about the quality of the people they have, the quality of the leader they have. The type of analytics that cannot be done by a machine have to be done by human people, by human beings. The type of interactions, the type of qualitative leadership that has to be provided. Everything that I've said here can only happen or can only be attained or achieved if we have the right people running our organizations. If you look at the first macroeconomic reform agenda of this country, especially driven by President Mkapa, it also had those attracting foreign direct investment, but also attracting foreign expertise. A lot has happened since then, but does Tanzania have enough stock of leaders with all the required skills? Not yet. We have done a lot since I've been involved in, for example, Santina knows of the CEO apprenticeship program that is also facilitated by Strathmore. And for the first time we are seeing through such programs, some companies that had never had a Tanzanian CEO have now Tanzanian CEOs. Because we are taking people, the likes of Ungu now leading Coca-Cola, Tanzania, the likes of Anael leading Songas, and many others. It's because we have now to make an investment in producing leaders not only fit for purpose for companies in Tanzania, but fit for purpose for companies all over the world. We should, in the next 5 to 10 years, we should be exporting CEOs to lead these corporates all over the world, all over the continent. And I think it is the importance of the institution like the Strathmore Global Institute. And that's why it's not called Strathmore Tanzania Institute. It's a global institute that prepares people for global roles that can be built or can be played in Tanzania, can be played in East Africa, in Africa, or elsewhere in the world. And as I've said, I've been involved in quite a number of Strathmore programs, and they have the ability of producing those people. And for us, I think we should all have the ambition of being part of this journey, because the next 10 years, if this growth happens in Tanzania, and we do not have the people to lead this growth, we'll go back to importing expertise from elsewhere. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying if we can compete, let's compete. You see? So I'm glad once again to be here, and as Francis had said, I think it's the right thing to be in Tanzania. I usually will tell people, if there is the better time to be in Tanzania, this is the best probably time to be in Tanzania. If you really want to invest, if you really want to be part of a journey that will make you smile 10 years from now, start that journey now. Whether it's an investment or investment in your company, investment in yourself, in terms of building your skills for you to be able to be part of this global growth. Asanteni kwa kunisikiliza.